Hey you! Are you tired of making cannons that look like this? Don't worry, I got you covered. Alrighty guys, welcome back to the second episode of How to Factions. Now today's episode we're actually going over a very vital part of factions, which would be cannoning. So we're gonna hit on three topics today, first of being side countering, second buffer countering, and then finally raiding, all of which are equally as important. But now guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop straight into it. Alrighty guys, so the first thing we are gonna go ahead and talk about is actually side countering. Now I will go ahead and put timestamps on the screen if you guys want to skip to a certain part. If not, go ahead and watch the entire video for a lot of knowledge. So let's go ahead and say you're on top of your base, and as you guys can see, a cannon box has been set up outside of your walls and you don't have any buffer counters to go ahead and counter. You are going to be required to go ahead and make a side counter to stop them from breaching your value. But now first things first, you guys need to go ahead and have Schematica and printer. Let's go ahead and walk through that really quickly. So if you guys don't exactly know what Schematica and printer is, as you guys can see, it obviously it's basically like a blueprint. Okay, so these blocks are obviously not here, but it does go ahead and show you where to place them. But now that is actually the part where printer comes in super handy, because if I go ahead and toggle a button really quickly, as you guys can see, I'm not even placing the blocks and it's all being done for me. All that I have to go ahead and do is be around these certain blocks. I'm not even looking at the blocks and they're just automatically being placed. So it makes it a lot easier and a lot faster to actually go ahead and print in cannons. Now, as you guys can see, a bunch of blocks are being placed and I'm not even placing a single one on my own. But now whatever server you are playing, you do need to go ahead and make sure it is allowed, although it is allowed on most servers. So as you guys see, I obviously did not finish the blueprint, but if I go ahead and hide it, you guys can see a bunch of the cannon is already printed in. And now we're not necessarily going to go into the most detail on how to go ahead and use printer, but I will go ahead and show you guys like commands and controls really quickly if you guys do want to go ahead and figure it out for yourself. So if you guys are using the Orbit client, obviously it is a paid client. It's like $30. Obviously you guys can use code Hxroic for a coupon off, but in here you have everything that you need. If you go ahead and click on your schematic, you can go ahead and mess with your printer settings, all of your keybinds. You guys can actually go ahead and copy my keybinds if you want. I've got a mini keyboard, so it's like super hard, but these are the keybinds that I'm currently using. But now to go ahead and apply that in today's episode with cannoning. So this first cannon box right here, as you guys can see, there are 0 walls on it. Theoretically speaking, there should be a cannon inside of here lined up ready to breach our base, but granted, it is not very well protected. So we're actually gonna go ahead and set up a 60 stacker on it because it is very quick to go ahead and set up, and obviously with printer it does not take much time at all. So now the first thing that we need to go ahead and actually do is counter from the side. So we want to counter from the west side, or you can counter for the east side, but obviously that is the world border right there. But now find a Z coordinate. You guys can see the Z up here to make sure we are not missing it. So let's go ahead and say -169340. We want to go ahead and have our barrel lined up right here and breach through that Z coordinate. So let us go ahead and open up our Schematica list, and I've got them sorted into a bunch of different folders. Let's go ahead and open up short stack. Let's go ahead and click and load up our schematic. As you guys can see, it went ahead and placed it directly over here. Now the only thing is this wool indicates which side it's actually shooting, so that means we're shooting it straight south, which is not what we want, because obviously we're not going to hit anything going that way. Now we're going to go ahead and find our coordinate once again, go ahead and open our keybind that actually goes ahead and manipulates Schematica. Go ahead and rotate it, rotate it, rotate it. Now, as you guys can see, it is now pointing that way, which means we're actually lined up with that cannon box. We can also go ahead and move it back, forth, whatever side you guys want to go ahead and go. We're gonna go ahead and line it up with -169340. Now let's go ahead and start printing. So now guys, like I mentioned, this is a 60 stacker. Obviously it does not stack all the way to 55, which you guys can tell because we're at Y222 right now, which a 60 stacker pretty much means it'll take like 3 or 4 shots to go ahead and breach into the base. And obviously with such a small cannon, it is a lot faster than printing in a whole 255. Let's go ahead and print this in really quickly and I'll bring you guys right back. Now obviously we have to go ahead and water the cannon to ensure that it doesn't blow. Now on the server you guys can probably go ahead and use sandbots, but obviously on Crystal there is not sandbots, so we need to go ahead and use magic sand. Basically acts as the exact same. Now let us go ahead and TNT fill. Now obviously if you guys are on the server as well, you do want to go ahead and ensure that you actually make an obsidian box to make sure nobody can just go ahead and walk on in. And obviously on the outside should be a bunch of water, because you can go ahead and actually just creep reg into the cobwebs if they weren't watered, which would not be good for you or the faction. So now after that, we are entirely ready to go ahead and fire. So now let's go ahead and turn on the lever. Now as long as we have plenty of TNT and obviously sand constantly stacking, we should go ahead and make sure that it does work. Like I mentioned, it does take a couple of shots. Now here, this should go ahead and work in a second. And perfect. We have officially side countered and we are now in the cannon. Go ahead and start creep regging it, and we have officially stopped the raid. So that is how you use a 60 stacker to go ahead and counter a cannon. Now let's go ahead and show you guys how to use a 255. So now a little bit farther back, we have got another cannon set up, and now this one has actually got walls. Now as you guys saw, that one took like 4 or 5 shots just to breach the cannon box. So now imagine doing that for every single wall. So we're gonna have to go ahead and set up a 255 that does go ahead and nuke on the very first shot. So it's practically the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and grab a coordinate to make sure we do not miss. Now we're looking at the Z right here. Now we've got one of these Z's to go ahead and use. Let's go ahead and find a cannon that we want to go ahead and print in. Do a little bit of rotation. Go ahead and move it over. Now perfect. We are now lined up with the cannon. We're ready to go ahead and print. Alrighty guys, so we have got our cannon printed in. We've got our sandbox set up. It is completely TNT filled. Now obviously you guys would have once again a roof on this cannon, but just for the purpose of the tutorial, we're not going to do one. But now things are going to get a little bit more complicated. Not really, just a tiny bit. So now all these ladders and trapdoors may look a little bit confusing, but it's really simple. So practically how the cannon works, what all the TNT and sand is actually doing is shooting up in here into the barrel. Now it's actually shooting off of the stair straight up into the air up against right here. If we go ahead and click one of these trapdoors, the TNT is going to get stuck here and shoot out this way, which then means it's going to hit right here, readjust itself, and start shooting this way at the cannon. So now it's confusing at first, but trust me, it is not confusing at all. This is actually pretty simple. So now the whole purpose of the trapdoors is actually go ahead and lower the Y. So right now, obviously there's no trapdoors, which means it's shooting at the max Y height. So now if we go ahead and press the button, the TNT should go ahead and go off the staircase, go ahead and hit the max height limit, and just off this pillar. And perfect, as you guys saw, it went ahead and nuked the very first wall. Now all you gotta do is go ahead and fire, or actually lever just a couple more times to go ahead and breach the cannon. Let's go ahead and shoot once more. Now let's go ahead and press the button one more time. The exact same thing should go ahead and happen. And perfect, it does go ahead and nuke once again. Now obviously the whole point with the trapdoors is to actually go ahead and lower the Y level. So say somebody is patching up here at 255 where we're shooting, we can go ahead and drop it super low. Let's go ahead and say at like 212, go ahead and shoot there, and obviously it'll take them a while to go and swim down. And if they drop all the way down, let's go ahead and go right back up and go ahead and just play back and forth. Go ahead and shoot high, low, and obviously you guys will go ahead and end up breaching very quickly. And now that right there is how you go ahead and side counter with a 255. Alrighty guys, so moving on to how to buffer counter. So now say this right here is our base. We have obviously got our entire buffer of walls, and now before TNT enables, you should go ahead and print in your buffer counters as well, which obviously we do have it printed in right here. So now the buffer countering, it is pretty much the exact same thing. It is super easy. So as you guys can see, we have our barrel lined up right here with this block, and now we're actually gonna go ahead and just off of our walls. So as you guys can see, I have yellow wool here to indicate where our line is for our buffer counter. Now let's go ahead and grab some obsidian, and I'll say that we need to go ahead and find their cannon box. So oh my goodness, there's a cannon box right in front of our buffer. We need to go ahead and find a coordinate once again. We are looking at the Z going back and forth, and now let's go ahead and say we want to shoot at -185580. Now let's actually go ahead and find where we have our buffer counter lined up, and now we want to go ahead and shoot right here at this core. So what we want to go ahead and actually do is set up a backboard at the next block on over, because obviously the TNT will go ahead and travel this way, hit this block, and then go ahead and start making its way this way. Now the next thing we need to go ahead and start doing is actually mining out slits, so that way we do not go ahead and start nuking our own base, which would definitely not be very good if we're being raided. So now once all these slits are completely lined out, we have an opening straight to their cannon. We're practically ready to go ahead and fire. Now let us go ahead and make sure we obviously have TNT in here. Go ahead and press the button one time. We've got sand completely stacked. Now it should go ahead and shoot at the max Y level. Go ahead and bank right off of this and start shooting this way. And as you guys can see, beautiful, it does go ahead and nuke. And basically we're already inside of the cannon. We have completely countered. So as you guys can see, that is a lot easier than actually making side counters, but sometimes side counters are completely essential. A lot of the time, people that are setting up cannons on you will go ahead and shoot at your buffer counters first, and obviously go ahead and destroy them so that way you cannot use them, and you're actually required to side counter from then on. So definitely go ahead and put walls in front of your buffer counter. Make sure it does not get blown up, because they are extremely important to defending your base. So that right there is practically how you go ahead and buffer counter and protect all of your value. Alrighty guys, so let's go ahead and move on to the fun part. Something that everybody has got to be waiting for is how to go ahead and actually raid. Now as you guys can see, we definitely have a cannon set up right here, and the walls are just over here off in the distance. So now you guys might be thinking, like, what in the world is this entire contraption? Why is there a bunch of lines out here in the middle of nowhere? And this is actually to go ahead and adjust off of. So as you guys can see, it is one block off from the cobwebs, and it basically works the exact same way as the buffer counter. We actually need a backboard for the TNT to go ahead and fly off of and readjust itself and start shooting at the base. And obviously, as you guys know, the TNT flies through the cobwebs, so it lines up perfectly. So now the reason we actually have a system set up something like this is because we can actually go ahead and manipulate these shots and shoot at different X and Z's. So say we want to go ahead and mess with them just a little bit, and obviously if we go ahead and drop the different trap door, it'll go ahead and lower it so it shoots at a lower Y. And as you guys can kind of see over there, it is lined up with a certain block, and as you guys can see, every single Y is at a different block. so it'll be a lot harder to go ahead and patch. This is pretty much called spam adjusting, and a lot of people hate it, okay? You may be hated, but you're also going to breach a lot of bases. So now what we actually have set up right here is actually an overstacker. You guys can tell, piece of purple wool. Now let's go ahead and put some sand on in. Make sure the cannon is completely full with TNT. And now we should go ahead and be shooting at a Y250. We can tell we're shooting at Y250 if we go ahead and check the looking at coordinates Y250. Obviously my crosshair is right here. We're looking at Y250, which a lot of people actually confuse that because they may say, hey, we're at Y249, but that's actually wrong. We're at Y250. That's the block that we're looking at. Now, obviously, this is an overstacker, so we'll go ahead and shoot. The TNT will stay at this block, but sand will travel up as well, and then it'll completely nuke all the way down. So let's go ahead and fire one time and quickly hurry on over to the base. We have got our chest set up. And perfect, as you guys can see, it does go ahead and nuke. And now, like I was talking about adjusting earlier and spam adjusting, as you guys can see, we shot at negative 1855551. Now, if we go ahead and actually drop the barrel and line it up with a different one of these backboards, it'll go ahead and shoot at a different coordinate, which is actually super useful when it comes to rating. Let's go ahead and make sure this is on a different coordinate. Let's go ahead and button one more time. We're actually out of sand, so that's my fault, but it is drywall. Obviously, your base should be watered. And now, as you guys saw, we didn't stack sand. We stacked a little bit of sand, but obviously we shot at a different coordinates, and it pretty much just makes the hole a lot bigger and a lot harder to go ahead and patch for them. So now it's actually up to you to go ahead and learn how you want to go ahead and raid. There's a lot of different strategies out there. One I will go ahead and showcase really quickly is actually staircasing. So this is very popular. If you do have the cannon levered, people will go ahead and shoot at the highest Y, drop for a couple shots, drop again, drop again, drop again, obviously just making a staircase slowly going down, 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 and down. And that's actually a super easy way to go ahead and drill deep into a base, and it is very hard as a defending faction to go ahead and catch. And now you guys may be wondering, like, why the heck do you have an entire set of trapdoors on the other side? Now this cannon is actually super cool because you can go ahead and flip the barrel and shoot out the other side as well. As you guys can see, we have cobwebs that allows us to go ahead and do that. Now let's go ahead and set up our backboard. And now with this specific cannon, all you need to go ahead and actually do is break this staircase and place it one block closer up. So it was back here, go ahead and break it, place it one block closer, and now it will go ahead and flip and go the other side, obviously bouncing off of right here and shooting out that way. All right, perfect. We should be ready to go ahead and fire. Now we should be shooting the other way and go ahead and hitting off this and shooting directly this way. And beautiful. As you guys can see, obviously we're missing the buffer counter, but if there was something lined up over here, it would be super beneficial to go ahead and shoot back and forth, alternating shots, because that is very hard to definitely go ahead and patch. But now guys, that is pretty much all you need to go ahead and know about raiding cannons as well. I hope you guys did go ahead and learn a lot in today's video. We went over a lot of stuff: buffer countering, side countering, two different types of side counters actually, as well as raiding. If you guys learned something new, drop a comment down below, let me know. And since we're going over all of this cannon, I think the very next episode will be how to go ahead and patch against these cannons and defend your base furthermore. But now without further ado, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.